You may be wondering, why the tinfoil hat? It's so the space lizard Illuminati won't read my mind. They've infiltrated every level of government and used jet contrails and water fluoridation to keep everyone dumb. Except me. I know the truth, since I'm not brainwashed like all you sheeple. Because I keep my mind sharp by avoiding GMOs, not drinking fluoride, and not breathing the air. You just can't handle the truthiness, like the fact that Big Pharma is hiding a cure for cancer and poisoning you with vaccines, and you're just naive if you can't see how obvious the fake moon landing is. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to sneak past the soldiers guarding the ice wall that the government is hiding from us so I can get the first picture of the edge of our flat Earth. Then, I'm going to jump off, because everyone is after me and everything is a lie to make us all atheist consumers. Oh, I made it to the edge. Ah! Welcome to Mr. Newton's Neighborhood. I'm your host, Scott Newton. Alright, so conspiracy theories. Today we'll talk about who's susceptible to falling for conspiracy theories. It's everybody. The difference between real conspiracy and a conspiracy theory, and why we fall for conspiracy theories and have such a hard time changing our minds to fit the facts. And finally, of course, we'll talk about how to identify a conspiracy theory and their faulty logic. This episode will help you gain skills not just in spotting conspiracy theories, but in identifying bullshit in many other aspects of your life, as well as help you gain a better understanding of how your brain works against you sometimes. Conspiracy theories are interesting to me partially because the people who believe them are often quite intelligent. At the very least, they often know a lot about the topics that their theories apply to. If you're going to debate a hardcore conspiracy theorist, be prepared to get a run for your money. They're also interesting to me because, don't tell anybody, but I used to believe a few of them. Just for fun, before we start, I'm going to give you a short list of conspiracy theories to see where you stand. If you believe in one or two of these, don't worry, you're probably not a conspiracy theorist. You'll probably watch this video and say, I agree with everything you said except blah blah blah, insert conspiracy theory here. If you believe quite a few things on this list, then you have fallen into the trap of conspiratorial thinking. You see, people who fall for conspiracy theories often do so because they're asking questions and thinking. They don't generally take things at face value, they question authority, and they're skeptical of commonly held ideas and people with power and influence, as well as how the government is being run. And these are actually really good traits to have. We should question our government. We should not trust someone just because they're an authority figure. We should not take everything at face value, and we should be skeptical of commonly held ideas. Conspiracy theorists are skeptics of sorts. However, a skeptic without critical thinking skills, an understanding of the scientific method, and a set of self-checking guidelines that help you spot your own biases is like being a surfer without a surfboard. You'll get taken over by the waves of misinformation. Okay, so just for fun, to see where you stand before we get going, here's that brief list of conspiracy theories. Are you ready? The Earth is flat. Ancient aliens helped build the pyramids. 9/11 was an inside job. Vaccines are dangerous. Vaccines cause autism. Big Pharma is hiding a cure for cancer and or other ailments. The city of Atlantis was real. Bigfoot is real. The government is hiding knowledge of alien UFOs and alien life. Water fluoridation is unsafe. Jet contrails or chemtrails are being sprayed on us for sinister purposes. Lee Harvey Oswald did not act alone in the JFK assassination. Princess Diana was assassinated. The moon landing was faked. There's a massive planet or some other object that will crash into Earth and destroy us, and NASA's hiding it from us. Global warming is a hoax. Hitler did not commit suicide. AIDS was created by the CIA. The world is secretly ruled by the Rothschild family. The world is secretly ruled by the Jews. The world is secretly ruled by the Catholic Church. The world is secretly run by the Freemasons. And of course, the world is secretly run by the Illuminati, with the goal of a new world order. And the list goes on and on and on and on and on. Okay, so now let's get going on fine-tuning our bullshit detectors, or our skepti-sense, as I like to call it. The first topic is, who is most susceptible to falling for conspiracy theories? The oversimplified answer, of course, is everyone. Nobody is immune to falling for untrue things. Of course, there's more psychology to it than that, and some people tend to fall for not just one or two, which is normal, but loads of them. I'll bet you can think of a conspiracy theory-minded friend or family member who believes quite a few seemingly nutty things. Research by political scientists Joseph E. Usinski and Joseph M. Parent, authors of American Conspiracy Theories, found that pretty much everyone is susceptible to falling for conspiracy theories. It doesn't matter if you're liberal or a conservative, it doesn't matter if you're male or female, your income is irrelevant too, and of course your race is irrelevant. Everybody falls for them. Doesn't matter who you are, race, gender, religion. However, the types of conspiracy theories you fall for may differ from group to group. Who we socialize with, where we live, and how we're raised fill us with different biases and beliefs. Usinski and Parent even found that people believed in conspiracy theories across all ages and education levels. However, the percentage of belief in conspiracy theories is lower in higher educated, so, seeking a higher education after public education is beneficial. The lesson to be learned from Usinski and Parent's research is that nobody is above being fooled. As Richard Feynman said, the easiest person to fool is yourself. That is why it's so important not to hold personal beliefs and ideas personally, because they're subject to change with new information. And remember, nothing is above question. The moment that you think that something you believe is above question is the moment you make yourself susceptible to believing something that isn't true. Of course, we feel stupid when we're wrong. I used to feel stupid when I found out I was wrong, but now I actually kind of enjoy finding out when I'm wrong. I know that sounds weird, but you really should become comfortable with being wrong. I try not to attach ideas and beliefs to my personal identity, so when I'm wrong, it's not difficult to let go of the idea. I'd rather find out I was wrong and made an ass of myself for a few years than be stubborn and make an ass of myself for my entire life. Aside from all of us being susceptible to believing bullshit, it's also important to point out when you're most susceptible to falling for conspiracy theories. I'm sure you noticed during the recent election last year there was conspiracies of plenty, but why? Jan Willem van Prugen, associate professor in social and organizational psychology at VU University Amsterdam, said conspiracy theories tend to pop up in times of uncertainty and fear. His research showed that feelings of lack of control can lead to conspiratorial thinking, and that those who are very conspiracy theory minded often tend to feel a lack of control. And on the flip side, he found that a sense of control can help protect against conspiratorial thinking. In one of Prugen's experiments, he had just over 100 people split into two groups. In one group, he had subjects write down times that they felt completely in control, and in the other group, you guessed it, he had them write down times when they felt that they didn't have control. Prugen's research team then told the subjects about a building project where the foundations of houses were destroyed, and then asked what their thoughts on it were. The subjects primed to feel in control by simply writing down times they felt they had control were less likely to think something sinister was afoot. He said, giving people a sense of control. Oh my gosh, blooper reel time. He said, giving people a sense of control can make them feel less suspicious over governmental operations. The essence of conspiracy theorizing is, I think, universal in human beings. People have a natural tendency to be suspicious of groups that are powerful and potentially hostile. Now that we know who's susceptible to conspiracy theories, everyone, and when you're likely to fall for them during times of uncertainty, stress, and fear, and that it's okay to be wrong, let's look at the difference between a conspiracy theory and a real conspiracy. Then we'll get into some thinking glitches that we all have. Okay, so we're going to define a conspiracy theory and separate it from real conspiracy to help us understand how they work. The book I mentioned earlier, American Conspiracy Theories, defined a real conspiracy by 4 characteristics. A group acting in secret to alter institutions, usurp power, hide truth, or gain utility at the expense of the common good. That sounds like a mouthful, right? Let's repeat that. 1. A group acting in secret to alter institutions, usurp power, hide truth, or gain utility at the expense of the common good. So, in a nutshell, a real conspiracy is basically 2 or more people conspiring in secret to cover up or cause a harmful event. In the case of a conspiracy theory, it's often all of the above. However, there's also not sufficient evidence to support it. Plus, it's usually claimed to be done by people with great power and or influence. Of course, people can be corrupt, have bad and selfish intentions, and commit real conspiracies. Watergate was a real conspiracy. Pearl Harbor was a real conspiracy. And yes, 9/11 was a real conspiracy. But because someone has a great power or influence doesn't automatically make them part of a system against us. 9/11 is a perfect example to start with because this is an actual conspiracy which spawned conspiracy theories, mainly claimed by the 9/11 truthers, aka the 9/11 truth movement, who say that it was an inside job planned by our own government, and that there were explosives in the Twin Towers, and even sometimes going as far as to claim that the plane that hit the Pentagon was actually a missile. I may do an entire episode on the 9/11 truth or conspiracy theory in the future. Actually, I know I'm going to, I just don't know when, so don't think that it's anything soon. I kind of do things on a whim. I've got a list of like 70 topics I want to do right now. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
Buy stuff.
We now return to Mr. Newton's neighborhood. Okay, now, so like I said, conspiracy theorists don't usually have evidence to back up their claim, and the burden of proof should always be on the one making the claim. Also, as Hitchens' razor states, what can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. The problem is, conspiracy theorists think they have evidence because they don't always understand what evidence is or how logical thinking works. I mean, have you ever tried to debate a conspiracy theorist and found that no matter how much you throw facts at them, it didn't sway them one bit? You could show them the physics that debunks the 9/11 truther version of how the towers fell, for example, and they'll still insist that the towers were controlled demolition. Let's look at why it's so hard to change the mind of a conspiracy theorist. We need to look at a couple of cognitive errors. Actually, these are things that we all have a problem with. Yes, you do this too. Have you ever noticed how everyone is wrong, but you? Logically, you know this can't be possible. Somebody must be correct most of the time in a debate on any given topic. So why is it that we think it's always us in the correct position? The first cognitive error is called cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is one reason that we think we are always right, deny facts, and believe contradictory things. Simply defined, cognitive dissonance is holding two or more contradictory ideas at the same time and believing both of them. As I'm sitting here editing this, I realized I may not have been clear or precise enough on what exactly cognitive dissonance is, and this is an important thing to understand before moving forward. So in psychology, cognitive dissonance is psychological stress when holding two or more contradictory beliefs, ideas, or values. So the action of cognitive dissonance is believing contradictory things simultaneously and convincing yourself that they work together, or making justifications when you get information that contradicts what you believe. So basically having inconsistent thoughts, ideas, or values, then finding ways to believe them simultaneously. Okay, so let's simplify it by breaking the term apart. Cognitive means to know, perceive, a mental process. And dissonance means tension, unharmonious, or discomfort. So, mental discomfort. Basically, it's the discomfort of holding contradictory ideas, then fooling yourself into making them work together to relieve the mental discomfort or psychological stress, the cognitive dissonance. And as you're about to see, we go to great lengths and use clever justifications to relieve the feeling of dissonance. Our brains don't like the discomfort of being wrong and of letting go of personal beliefs and values. That's probably pretty obvious, right? Our brains find such discomfort and stress in this that our minds throw out logic altogether as a kind of mental self-defense, since we feel attacked when we're told we're wrong. Not only will cognitive dissonance let us hold multiple contradictory beliefs, ideas, and values at the same time, it excuses away new information when it conflicts with existing beliefs and values. And then, the backfire effect kicks in, where we actually hold tighter to our beliefs when given information that shows that we're wrong. For example, if I told you, patriotism is dangerous, you'd probably think I'm some sort of anarchist or communist, right? If I added the fact that many people followed Hitler out of patriotism, you'd probably feel pretty uneasy and maybe even angry and immediately try to find reasons why that isn't real patriotism, or explain why your version of patriotism is different. But is your version of patriotism different? Is your version of patriotism really any different than the citizens and soldiers who followed Hitler? See? I just created that feeling of cognitive dissonance in a lot of you. But this isn't about patriotism. That's a nuanced topic that I just oversimplified to create that feeling to make a point. We strive for internal consistency. When we have inconsistency, we become so psychologically uncomfortable that our brains go in self-defense mode to reduce it. So we invent and justify reasons to make our contradictory beliefs work together. Even avoid information that goes against what we already believe. Have you ever noticed that sometimes it's very difficult to admit that we're wrong, and sometimes it's really easy? Why is this? This is due to the magnitude of dissonance, or simply put, the amount of unstable contradictory elements. If there's not very many unstable elements and they're not personal to you, for example, if you're certain that you're traveling south and your passenger insists that you're going north, then you see a sign and landmark that proves that they were right, then you'll just shrug it off and accept it quickly without much mental stress. Oh, I guess we were going north, right? No big deal. However, if you're given strong evidence against a personal belief, for example, something that disconfirms your religion, this will create massive dissonance, and you'll create complex justifications in order to hold on to your belief. Or you'll just dismiss the new information as false, even if it's a fact. And oddly enough, this is really weird, more intelligent people often hold tighter to things that aren't true when shown contradictory evidence, because they're better at creating elaborate excuses for their false beliefs. The higher one's IQ, the higher the possibility of crafting a good excuse, and oftentimes the less likely they'll be to admit when they're wrong. This can make them feel immune to the facts when it comes to their personal beliefs. This is called ideological immunity. It's when the rules basically apply to everything but your own ideology or belief. For example, when I see someone debating creationists, the creationists say things like, life is complex and must have a creator. But when the other person replies, then who created God? There's nothing more complex than an all-powerful being. Their own logic of complex things must have a creator goes right out the window and doesn't apply to their God. They see their ideology is immune to the facts and same logic that they hold to everything else. And oftentimes these are incredibly intelligent people. Now obviously, you don't have to be intelligent to fall into the trap of ideological immunity and cognitive dissonance. Your justifications can be just plain freaking stupid. It's often just a matter of how invested you are in your belief. The more you're invested in an idea, the more likely you are to hold on to it when given contradictory or disconfirming evidence, no matter how weak your justification is. One of my favorite examples of this was a UFO cult in the 1950s called the Seekers, who gave up all their worldly possessions, as well as their jobs and their spouses, to be taken up in a flying saucer by aliens to avoid the destruction of the planet Earth. The group's leader, Dorothy Martin, also known as Marion Keech, claimed to get a message from aliens on the planet Clarion, sounds like a beauty product, that the Earth would be destroyed in a flood before the morning of December 21st, 1954. When the night of the 20th arrived, they gathered together to be lifted into the spaceship. But by 4:45 in the morning, there was still no ship in sight. It was then that Marion Keech began to cry and got another message saying that the god of Earth called it off due to their little group spreading so much light into the world. Oh, how precious. So, what did Keech's followers do when the ship didn't come and she went all nutty and changed the story? Did they get pissed off at her for being manipulated into losing their jobs and spouses over her insane con? Nope. They held tighter to their beliefs. The backfire effect. But why? Because they had so much emotionally and physically invested in it. That kind of stuff blinds us. This is part of why you'll see people go so long trying to make a multi-level marketing scheme work, for example, even after wasting years on it. It's why you can think critically about everyone else's religion, but why yours is the only true one. And of course, it's also why conspiracy theorists won't let go of a conspiracy despite the facts. They often spend so much time preaching about the conspiracy and so much time researching it that they've become invested. Then they eliminate dissonance by creating ideas that can make opposing ideas work together, or just excuse away opposing ideas. And this all ties right into confirmation bias. So that's our next cognitive error, confirmation bias. Now, unfortunately for you, once again, conspiracy theorists aren't the only ones guilty of confirmation bias. It's one of the biggest logical mistakes that we all make. So, What is confirmation bias? Well, put simply, confirmation bias is paying attention to the things that confirm what we already believe and ignore or excuse away what we don't believe. Confirmation bias is what we talked about in the psychic episode, paying attention to what the psychic gets right and ignoring what they get wrong. And as you saw in the psychic episode, we often don't even realize we're doing it. You're going to hear confirmation bias pop up a couple more times, so just remember that it basically means that you seek out information you agree with and ignore or rationalize away things that go against your beliefs. Pay attention to the hits and ignore the misses. Now, we've actually observed confirmation bias in action in the brain with fMRIs. In one such case, psychology professor Drew Weston did a creative study with stern liberals and stern conservatives. When the participants of the study were given information making their desired candidate look bad, the participants, as I'm sure you've already guessed, justified and excused away the negative things about their preferred candidates. Duh, no surprise there, right? But what happened in the brain while doing this was really fascinating. The dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, which deals with reasoning and logic, was basically inactive. So what was active? The anterior cingulate cortex, which handles conflict resolution, and the orbital frontal cortex, which processes emotions. Then, when the participants conjured a conclusion that they were happy with, created an excuse basically, the ventral striatum kicked in. That's the reward part of the brain. In other words, we don't use logic when we come across facts that go against what we already believe. Instead, after we create a satisfactory justification, we reward ourselves with a chemical high. So basically, we get high on convincing ourselves we're right when we're actually wrong. Nice. Thanks, brain. So now that we've discussed a couple cognitive glitches we all have that help reinforce conspiratorial thinking, what are some of the signs of conspiracy theories? Oh yeah! We're getting to the fun stuff now! Hi, so as I was editing this video, I realized it's just too damn long. So I decided to break it up into two parts, even though it was written and filmed as one segment. But the real fun stuff, the reason you probably clicked on this video in the first place, is how to spot signs of conspiracy theories and learn how to debunk them. So that's what we're going to do in part 2. It's already uploaded, but I'm not making it public for 2 weeks. Next week is part 2 of our 10-part series, Drunk Fallacies, where my wife and I attempt to explain logical fallacies while drunk. Of our 6-part... 6 out of 10 part series, Drunk Fallacies, where I explain logical fallacies while we are drunk.
We're like a cute little couple up here.
Well, thanks for watching.
Mr. Newton's Neighborhood was made possible by viewers like you.
Be a neighbor and subscribe.